Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Not every story begins with a betrayal, but mine starts with a fire alarm, a frozen lasagna, and my wife pretending she didn't know why the bedroom door was locked. It was 6:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember that because the oven timer was blinking like a siren from a war zone, and the smoke alarm was already screaming overhead. My frozen lasagna, my sad, lonely bachelor-style dinner, was burning to a crisp. And Lenora? She was nowhere. At least not in the kitchen where she was supposed to be. Our dog, Benny, was scratching frantically at the basement door, which made no sense since we hadn't used the basement for months. It was damp and creepy and still smelled like mildew from that pipe leak last fall. But that's when I realized the bedroom door upstairs was locked. We don't lock doors in our house. We never have. Not even during arguments, which we've had plenty of. I called out her name once. No answer. Called again, louder. Still nothing. So I turned off the oven, cracked a window, and just stood there in the smoke haze of my ruined dinner, wondering how I'd gotten to this version of my life. Wondering why I felt like a guest in my own home. Wondering who she was locking the door against, because it clearly wasn't me. I didn't knock. I didn't want to hear a lie through wood. Instead, I sat in the garage for hours with Benny, just listening, waiting. When she finally came down, hair damp, skin flushed, shirt inside out, she gave me the same excuse she always did when things didn't add up. You're being paranoid, Darryl. Paranoid. That word has been her weapon for months. Anytime I questioned the strange receipts, the missing chargers, the new perfumes, the girls' nights that always ended with her phone dead. Paranoid. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I didn't even look her in the eye. Instead, I quietly packed a bag, grabbed Benny's leash, and left. No note. No slam of the door. No dramatic speech about broken trust. Just silence. I disappeared. But of course, silence never lasts forever. Especially when the person you're running from figures out exactly where to find you. I never told anyone where I went. Not my brother, not my coworkers, not even my landlord. I left the city like a ghost, with just Benny in the passenger seat and the sound of tires chewing up the highway behind me. I ended up in a tiny coastal town I found on a forgotten travel blog from 2009. Population, barely 2,000. No big box stores, no Starbucks, no one who knew me as Darryl, the guy whose wife might be sleeping with someone else. Just a place where no one asked questions. I rented a weather-worn cabin 3 miles from the shore. The heater rattled like it was haunted. The windows stuck when it rained, and there was no Wi-Fi. But it was perfect. Quiet. Hidden. Safe. For a while, I started to breathe again. Benny and I walked the trails. I started reading paperbacks I found in a local free library box. I even picked up sketching again, badly but still. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel like it was wrapped in barbed wire. Then, one morning, I saw her car. Same dent in the fender. Same crooked license plate frame she never got fixed. Parked just a few spots down at the only grocery store in town. I stood there frozen, holding a bag of rice and a can of soup, heart thumping like a war drum in my ears. I hadn't heard from her in nearly 6 months. No calls, no texts. I thought maybe she'd moved on. Maybe she was glad I left. But apparently she'd been looking. And she found me. I didn't wait around to see if she was inside. I left the cart, left the food, and walked straight out the door like it was on fire. When I got back to the cabin, she was already parked in front of it. Window down, sunglasses on, smiling, like this was some kind of reunion. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. Benny barked once and went quiet, like he knew this wasn't good. You're a hard man to find, she said. Do you know how long I've been searching for you? I wanted to laugh, or scream, or just disappear again. But instead, I finally spoke. Why are you here, Lenora? And she said it with a straight face. No shame, no hesitation. Because we need to talk about what happened. About why you left without a word. About Ryan. That name again. Ryan. The man from the locked room. The name I'd heard whispered behind a closed door. The ghost that haunted our marriage. I should have told her to leave. I should have turned around, slammed the door, locked it, and gone back to pretending she didn't exist. But instead, I listened, and what she told me next made everything worse. She followed me into the cabin like she still belonged there. She didn't knock. She didn't ask. She just crossed the threshold like she had every right, like 6 months of silence hadn't happened, like I hadn't walked away from everything to escape her. I should have told her to leave. I should have raised my voice, screamed, broken something, anything. But I just stood there, frozen, while Benny growled low from the corner. He'd never done that before. Not with her. Lenora walked slowly through the small living room, eyes scanning the fireplace, the old bookshelf I'd filled with paperbacks, the half-drawn sketch of Benny I'd been working on. Then she sat on the arm of the couch like it was still our couch, looked at me with that same tilted head expression she used whenever she was about to manipulate me, and said, "I didn't sleep with him, Darryl." She paused like she expected me to thank her for that, like I was supposed to collapse in relief because technically she hadn't crossed the final line. I didn't speak. I was afraid if I did, I'd break something in my own throat. "I didn't sleep with Ryan," she repeated. "But I thought about it. I was close. I know you probably think I did, and maybe it doesn't matter now, but I need you to know that I stopped it." I just stared at her. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. She kept talking anyway. "He made me feel seen. You hadn't touched me in months, Darryl. You were always tired, always distracted, always doubting yourself. I felt like a ghost in our house. And Ryan, he listened. He complimented me. He noticed things." My mouth finally moved. "So you locked the door to talk?" She had the audacity to look embarrassed. "No, that was wrong." Panicked. I didn't know what to say. "You always assume the worst." "Because the worst was happening." She looked down, suddenly very interested in the floor. "I wanted you to chase me. I wanted you to be angry, to care. I thought maybe if you thought you were losing me, you'd finally fight for me again." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. Her logic was twisted. She wanted to be chased, so she flirted with another man. She wanted to feel wanted, so she weaponized my silence, my anxiety, my exhaustion. She wanted a reaction, and when she didn't get one, she lit a match and acted surprised when everything burned. She looked up again, eyes glossy. "I looked for you every week. I filed a missing person report. I checked shelters. I went to your brother's house, your old job, your gym. Nobody knew where you went. I thought something happened to you." "Something did happen to me," I said quietly. "You happened." She flinched. I saw it in her eyes. For once, she didn't have a comeback. "I didn't come here to fight," she whispered. "I came here to fix things. But some things can't be fixed. Some cracks run too deep." And in that moment, I knew something she didn't. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to rewrite the story. Lenora stayed the night. Not because I invited her, because she didn't give me a choice. The moment the rain started pounding against the tin roof like an angry drummer, she gave me that look, the one that always used to work on me. Big eyes, soft voice, head slightly tilted like she was asking a question with no answer. And like a fool, I let her stay. I told myself it was just one night. One cold night in a town where motels shut down after Labor Day. She slept on the couch. Benny stayed curled at my feet, growling low into the dark. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I found her making coffee in my kitchen like she'd always been there. She was humming some song from the radio, barefoot, wearing one of my old sweatshirts, like we were still married, like she hadn't shattered me from the inside out. I wanted to scream at her to stop pretending, to stop treating my exile like a vacation. But I didn't. I just watched. "You know what I remember most about us?" she asked, turning slowly with the mug in her hand. "That stupid camping trip where it rained the entire time and we ended up sleeping in the car." I didn't reply. "You told me that night you'd never let me go, that no matter what, we were in this for the long haul." That line hit me like a steel bat, not because it was sweet, but because it was the exact memory I tried to forget. I had said that, with wet socks and fogged-up windows, I'd held her hand and promised forever. But that was before she locked me out of her life. Before she made me feel like a ghost in my own home. Before Ryan. Do you really think, I said slowly, that a memory from years ago can erase everything you did? Her face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The drop of her shoulders, the tightening of her jaw. No, I just thought maybe it still meant something. It does. It means I was stupid enough to believe you wouldn't throw it away. Silence. Then she did something unexpected. She walked across the room and set her phone on the table. Unlocked. Open to a message thread. Read it, she said. I didn't move. I didn't want to give her that power. Read it, Darryl. I'm not hiding anything anymore. So I did. I picked up the phone. The texts were between her and Ryan. Dozens of them. Dates, inside jokes, late night thinking of you messages. One thread said, I can't stop picturing your hands. Another, when he's asleep, I wish it was you next to me. And then, a final message. It's over. I'm gonna find my husband. Dated 3 months ago. I put the phone down like it was radioactive. Why show me this now? I asked. Because I need you to know that I ended it before I even knew where you were. Because I chose you. That made me laugh. Not a real laugh. A bitter, sharp one that scraped its way out of my throat. You didn't choose me, Lenora. You lost both of us. I just didn't know it yet. She didn't speak after that. Just stared at me like I wasn't the man she remembered. Maybe I wasn't. I walked out the door, into the cold, damp morning, and didn't come back until nightfall. When I returned, she was still there. But the story she had to tell me next was something I never expected. When I walked back in, the cabin smelled like burnt toast and cheap perfume. She had opened the windows, but it didn't help. The air was thick with something else, something invisible but heavy. Guilt, maybe, or dread. She was sitting on the couch, the same one she slept on the night before, with that same haunted look like she'd been rehearsing her next line over and over. I didn't sit down. I leaned against the far wall and waited. I didn't even take off my coat. I didn't tell you everything, she started. Of course not. They never do. She looked up, her eyes glassy. You remember the night you left? The night of the fire alarm, the lasagna? I nodded slowly. How could I forget? I didn't just flirt with Ryan. I wasn't just looking for attention or trying to make you jealous, she said. I invited him over. Every word after that felt like a knife dragged slowly across my ribs. I felt Benny shift behind me like even he understood something was cracking open in the room. I told him you'd be out late, that we could talk. Just talk, I told myself. But when he showed up, he didn't come to talk. He came expecting something else. Couldn't breathe. I wanted her to stop, and yet I needed to hear every damn word. We drank wine. I was angry at you that day. You'd forgotten our dinner plans again. And Ryan, he made it easy to forget why I was mad in the first place. We were upstairs. In the bedroom. I locked the door because I didn't want to think. I just wanted to feel something that wasn't loneliness. My vision blurred for a second. I gripped the edge of the bookshelf beside me so hard I thought it might snap. But I couldn't go through with it, she said, voice trembling. He leaned in to kiss me, and I panicked. I told him to leave, that I made a mistake. He wasn't happy about it. He stormed out. You came home not long after. I had always suspected something worse had happened that night. But hearing the truth that she planned it, invited it, waited for it, I realized this wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about intentional cruelty. I stared at her, not blinking. So I was just collateral damage in your tantrum? No, she said quickly. It wasn't like that. I was spiraling. I thought you didn't love me anymore. I thought I was invisible to you. And your solution was to crawl into bed with someone else? I didn't crawl into bed with him, she snapped, suddenly defensive. I made a mistake. A horrible, selfish mistake. But I stopped it. I shook my head. You stopped it after you lit the match. That doesn't make you noble, Lenora. It just makes you a coward with cold feet. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there in that silence she used to weaponize so well. But it didn't work on me anymore. I had lived in silence for 6 months without her. I knew its taste now. Hers wasn't the same. "I needed you to know the truth," she said finally. "Not the version you imagined all this time." "No," I replied. "You needed to tell your truth. But mine started the moment I saw you lock that door. And nothing you say rewrites what that moment did to me." I left the room. Left her sitting there with her empty coffee cup and her carefully crafted version of events. But before I closed the bedroom door behind me, she said something that made my stomach knot. "I think I'm pregnant. I think I'm pregnant." She said it so casually, like it was just another line in her ever-expanding monologue of regrets, excuses, and half-truths. I didn't even respond at first. I stood there, my hand on the bedroom door, staring at the wooden grain like it would somehow rearrange itself into an answer. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared to hear that word come out of her mouth. Not after everything. Not from her. She didn't follow me when I stepped into the bedroom and shut the door. Maybe she knew better by then. Or maybe she thought she'd said enough. I paced for nearly an hour, my mind racing in 10 directions at once. Part of me wanted to believe it was a lie. A last-ditch attempt to tether me back to her mess. Another part of me, darker, more dangerous, wondered if the child was even mine. When I came back out, she was sitting at the kitchen table, arms folded, staring at her phone. She looked up the moment I entered like she'd been waiting for the cue in some terrible play. "Say something," she whispered. "Whose is it?" My voice came out dry, cold, almost unfamiliar. Her lips parted like she wanted to act offended. But I think she knew better than to go that route. She just stared at the table and said, "I don't know yet." I actually laughed. I don't know what kind of laugh it was, but it didn't feel good. Felt hollow. Wrong. Felt like everything inside me was cracking at once. "You came all the way out here to maybe tell me you're possibly pregnant with either your husband's or your almost lover's child?" I said, my voice rising for the first time. "What am I supposed to do with that, Lenora? Congratulate you? Throw a party?" "I needed to tell you in person." "No. You needed to control the way I found out." She didn't deny it. She just sat there, quiet again, letting the storm build between us. "I didn't sleep with him," she said after a long pause. "I know you don't believe me, but I didn't. And I don't want to raise a child in this, whatever this is. This silence. This hate." My chest tightened. I wasn't even sure I wanted kids anymore. Not with her. Not with someone who'd pushed me so far away I'd vanished off the map. But what if she was pregnant? What if, by some miracle, the child was mine? "I'm not ready for this," I said quietly. "I'm not either," she admitted. "But if it's yours, you deserve to know. And if it's not, you still deserve closure." I didn't know what to say to that. There was no script for this kind of wreckage. No tidy resolution. Just ashes and questions. And the worst part was I could feel part of me slipping. That dangerous little piece that still remembered the version of her I once loved. Before she left for bed, she turned at the hallway and said, "I'll take the test tomorrow. You can be there if you want." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how many versions of my life were collapsing at the same time. Wondering if the version I ran away to was about to get dragged back into the one I barely escaped. Because if she was pregnant, my disappearance was over. And if she wasn't, I still didn't know if I could send her away. The sun hadn't even fully risen when I heard her moving around the kitchen. Cabinets opening, coffee brewing. She was quiet, like she didn't want to wake me. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't come out. But I did. I sat up on that old creaky bed, stared at the wall for a while, then finally dragged myself into the kitchen where the smell of burnt toast and tension filled the air like smoke. She was holding a small paper bag from the only pharmacy in town. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she looked more composed than I felt. She didn't say a word, just placed it on the table between us. "You still want to be here when I take it?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. I just nodded. She took the test into the bathroom and closed the door. I could hear the soft rustling of the plastic wrapper, the faucet turning on, and then silence. I stared at the clock on the wall. 2 minutes felt like 20. My heart pounded in my ears so loudly I almost didn't hear the door open again. She walked back in and placed the test on the table face down. "Timer's set," she said. We didn't speak, didn't touch, didn't breathe. It felt like I watched the seconds crawl by, my mind running wild with every possible outcome. If it was positive, everything would change. Again. And if it was negative, would that actually make it easier to let her go? She finally reached for the test. I expected her to turn it over and look first. But she didn't. "You do it," she whispered, pushing it toward me. "I don't want to see your reaction secondhand." I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the plastic like it might burn. Then I flipped it. Negative. The relief hit so fast and so hard it felt like a punch. But just beneath it, confusion. Sadness? I didn't want to be tied to her forever, but for a brief second, I thought, maybe that child could have been something clean. A reset. Something that wasn't broken. I looked up, and she was already crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice shaking. "I really thought." I raised a hand. Not to comfort her. Just to stop her. "Don't apologize for something that didn't happen." She nodded slowly, wiping her face. "So, what happens now?" I didn't know. I genuinely didn't. She chased me down, confessed everything, shattered the one wall I'd managed to build around my new life. And now, standing there in the kitchen of my self-imposed exile, she looked more like a stranger than ever. A familiar stranger. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "But I also don't trust you. And I don't think I ever will again." She bit her lip, nodded again, but didn't try to argue. That scared me more than if she had. "Then maybe we just say goodbye this time," she whispered. "For real." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. But I opened the door. She stood there for a moment, as if waiting for something. Anything. A touch. A goodbye. A second chance. But I gave her nothing. And then she left. She walked back to her car and disappeared down that same winding road I'd once escaped on. But I had no idea what she left behind would be even more complicated than her return. Because the next day, I got a message. From him. The message came from a number I didn't recognize. No name. Just a short, unexpected text that turned my stomach before I even opened it. "I owe you an apology. Ryan." I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. I hadn't said his name out loud in months. I tried to erase it from my head entirely. But there it was. Short, direct, and somehow heavier than all the noise Lenora had thrown at me. I didn't answer at first. What was there to say? What kind of apology could even mean anything at this point? But after pacing around the cabin a dozen times, I sat down and replied. "Then say it." A few minutes later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. "Hey, I wasn't going to call. But you deserve more than a text." I didn't know she was married at first. She didn't wear a ring. When I found out, she told me things were over between you two. She made it sound like you were the problem. I believed her. I'm not proud of it. When she broke things off, I didn't fight her. I knew it was wrong. But I just wanted you to know. She did walk away. And it wasn't because she felt guilty. It was because she said she saw something in you that she never deserved. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to hear that. And for some strange reason, I did forgive him, not for what he did, but for the honesty, for not sugarcoating it, for confirming what I already knew, that I had been loving someone who didn't know what to do with being loved deeply. I didn't save his number. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. That voicemail closed a chapter one hadn't realized was still open. I stayed in the cabin for a few more weeks. I walked with Benny. I read more terrible paperbacks. I started painting again, badly still, but with a strange sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I even started writing a little. About grief, about survival, about how sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is leave quietly when no one claps for him. Eventually, I moved on. Found a new town. A real job. A tiny art store with a help wanted sign and an owner who smiled at me like she knew I'd been carrying something invisible. Her name was Elise. And one day, maybe, I'll tell her this story. But for now, I'm just grateful. Not that she cheated. Not that she lied. But that I found the strength to walk away. because disappearing didn't mean I gave up. It meant I chose myself. If this story hit you somewhere deep, let me know in the comments. What moment shocked you the most? And what would you have done differently? Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. We share real stories with real emotion, and yours might be next. Stay strong, stay honest, and don't be afraid to walk away when it's time.